Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to another video on JavaScript methods and events in 30 days challenge. Today we are going to be talking about the reduce method. And what exactly is the reduce method? Well, basically, the reduce method in JavaScript is used to iteratively reduce the element of an array to a single value by applying a callback function that combines each element with an accumulator, resulting in a final accumulated result. That might sound weird for those who don't know how the reduce method works. I'd like to give you a simple example in order for you to understand what we are going to do. After that, we are going to do a much more complex one with some calculation in order to solidify your understanding. So what I'm going to do now is to create a variable called reduce method. That is going to be my variable name. You can actually name it anything. And now I'll create an array of 4 items. Like that. And since it's an array method, we can use it directly right here. And now we need to pass in our callback function. And now remember, inside our callback function, we need to pass in 2 parameters. The first one is what we call accumulator. So it's generally known as accumulator. And the second value is going to be the current array that you're working with. So in my case, my first value is going to be accumulator. And then the second value, I'm just going to name it number. But you can name it anything. It could be anything. And now I'll go with my curly bracket. And also remember to return the accumulator. If you don't return the accumulator, well, you get undefined. And when you get undefined, the user that visits your website will be in panic. So don't let them be in panic. Always return the accumulator. So I will return the accumulator like that. And now I will set the initial value of that accumulator to 0. We can pass it right here. And also remember that in here, we can pass in an object. You can have a number here, and then you can have an array, whatever you want to return. So since in our case, we're going to return a number, so that is why I want my initial value to be 0. And right now, if I console.log the reduce method variable, you can see that inside our console, we have a value of 0. Just like that, because that is our initial value. If I change it to something like 50, and then refresh my web page, you get 50 as your initial value. So this is to tell you that you can have an initial value of your accumulator. We can also log the number to the console in order to see what we are getting back. And now if I refresh the web page, you can see that we have 10, 20, 30, and 40, plus the initial number that will log into the console. Okay, so what we want to do is to calculate all this number and then return it to our reduce method variable right here. So to do that, I can just grab the accumulator and I will set plus or equals the number. And what is it going to do? Every time we loop through this array, we are going to grab the number and then add it to the next number, and then to the next number, and then to the next number, until we get our final result. So if I refresh my web page, you can see that the initial value of 0 is now 100. So basically, our initial value, which was 0, plus the first item in our array, which is 10. And the value is going to give us 10. When we loop through our array, we grab the second item in our array plus the previous value, which is going to give us 30, and so on and so on. So basically, that's how the reduce method works. Okay, but like I told you, if you set your initial value to 50 and then refresh the web page, Well, what happened? The result changed to 150 because instead of adding 0 to 10, now we have 50. Of course, the result is going to change. That is why we have 150 in the console. So I hope you understand this. So if you do, let's move to a much more complex example. I will comment this one out, and then I'll create some space right here and paste all the steps that we are going to follow to create our functionality. If you remember from our previous video, we created this array of objects. Basically, we are still going to use this array to create the functionality that we are about to do. So the first step is to loop through the array using the reduce method, of course. To get started, I will create a variable called reduce method. That is going to be my variable. And then I will assign it to our workers array, and then we use the reduce method. So inside the parentheses, we need to pass in our callback function with the two parameters that is going to require to work with the reduce method. So in my case, it's going to be accumulator and then worker. Now I will have my curly brackets in place. And don't forget, your initial value should be 0 or whatever you will want to return. So in my case, my initial value is going to be 0. And of course, we are going to return at the accumulator. So right now, if I console.log reduce method like that, and then refresh the web page, you can see that our initial value is 0. Let's say I added 100. Of course, our initial value is going to be 100. So basically, what you're going to return is going to determine what you should pass here. Okay, since we are going to return a number, so we want our initial value to start from 0. If you were to return an object, well, of course, you can pass in an object. And what do you expect to see in the console? An object. If you pass in an array, and let's say you want to return an array from this functionality, well, guess what? You will see your array in the console. But since we are working with number, like I said, our initial value is going to start with 0. So now let's move to the second step, which is to grab all the workers that makes more than $10,000. To do that, we need to create an if condition and check if worker.salary is greater than $10,000. So if that is the case, what we want to do, we want to log the worker object inside our console. I can refresh my web page, and then you see all the 3 objects inside our array that meets this condition. Life is great. So basically, we need to grab the salary and then remove 10% from the amount they make. And to do that, let me actually show the salary to the console. The first guy makes $70,000. The second guy makes $150,000. So basically, we're just going to deduct 10% from the amount that they make. To do that, I will duplicate this, and then I'll go with worker.salary multiplied by 0.1, which is 10% of what they are making. Now you can see that in the console as well. So 10% of 70,000 is 7,000. 10% of 150,000 is 15,000, and so on and so on. So now we want to calculate everything, and after that we'll look for the average. So to calculate, we grab our accumulator, and remember that the value of the accumulator starts with 0. And what are we going to do? We are going to add it to the next value that we are going to grab from the object. Basically, it was supposed to be 70,000, but since we are only getting 10% from this amount, we are going to add the 10% with the initial value, which is 0. And now we get $7,000. And through the second iteration, we are going to add $7,000 plus our second value, 10% of 150,000, which is 15,000. We are going to grab that and paste it right here. And well, guess what? How much are we going to have? We are going to have $22,000, okay? And so on and so on. So now if I go with accumulator plus or equals worker.salary, since we have access to that value, multiplied by 0.1. Okay? And now we get the total amount of money, or let me say, we are going to get the total amount of tax collected. Let me refresh the web page and you will see $26,000 in the console. Life is great. So in here, we can just pass in a custom message and say the total amount of money collected is dollars. And now we can have our $sign right here. Refresh the web page. And then we can see the total amount of money collected is $26,000. Life is great. And the final thing that we have to do now is to calculate the average of tax collected. So to do that, I'll create a variable called average tax collected, and I'll assign into our reduce method divided by the number of items or items that were returned from our array, which is 3. Okay, so let's pass in 3, and now we can actually console.log average total as well. Average total collected, and in the console you can see that we have 8,666.666. Let's get rid of all the numbers that appears after the decimal point. So to do that, we can go with our math inbuilt method and go with math.flow like that. And then we are going to get rid of all the numbers after the decimal point. Okay. So now here we have it. Life is great. And now we are done with our challenge. And I think you understand what we've done so far. So basically, the reduce method just returned a single value after all the functionality that we've done. So guys, that's our challenge. I hope you understand what we've done so far. If you don't understand, you can still watch it back in order to understand what we've done so far. And make sure that you practice in order to solidify your understanding. I hope this thing is going to help you a lot. So with that being said, guys, I'll see you in the next video.